state of Nigeria's economy is one of the most pressing topics ahead of the 2023 presidential elections. With the emergence of Atiku as the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, we decided to take a look at his economic agenda for Africa's largest economy. Now, we will be doing the same thing for candidates for other parties to keep things balanced and get a holistic view of the economic plans of the potential future leaders of Nigeria. So joining us to discuss further, we have Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu and virtually Ayobami Fawahimi, who is a human resources professional and entrepreneur. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Chika, you're very welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Good morning. Very good morning to you. So let's put up the first item on, and this we got this from Atiku Abubakar's Instagram page. Chika, let's start with you. We will break government monopoly in all infrastructure sectors, giving private investors a larger role in funding. What do you make of this?
I mean, please don't stampede me into discussing the economic plan.
Okay.
You know, and but there are bigger fundamental issues.
Yes.
That I wanted to see in this budget. Please bear with me.
Yes.
I would love the major challenge. What I want to see is, or let me put it out there, it is very easy to go and copy proposals or manifesto from anybody. Indeed, all this we're going to see today can be replicated by any other candidate.
Yeah.
You know, so the fundamental issue, the key issue that we're going to use in measuring, analyzing them, we already said that we're going to do that for all the candidates.
Yes.
This election cycle is going to be different. It won't be like a business like before, where people just come and dump things on us. It's how. Because you read out this something, we're going to give you free education, free health. How? Yeah. So how are you going to fund it? What are the key initiatives on that line? So the major issue, the macro issue in this economy is no matter the grandiose plans you may have,
yes,
the number one thing is where's the money?
Right. Where's the money going to come from?
I would love to hear from each candidate where the money is going to come from. I was privileged to be in a session where I had to listen to somebody saying, look at the revenue lines.
Yes.
Where oil prices at $100 per barrel were broker than before. Non-oil export is not there.
Yeah.
The other line will be what? Borrowing. And we already, depending on where you read, already about 92-93% debt service to revenue ratio.
Yeah.
And so the issue I would like to hear from each candidate is revenue, where, how. Then you can start, washing us with their grandiose policies and programs and stuff like that. So in assessing this Alhaji Atiku's manifesto, I would like to hear or start by hearing where is the revenue, where is the money going to come from to implement all these initiatives, where they are. And the general thing that we know is that, I will stop in a minute,
okay.
Is that we know Alhaji Atiku has been a market-facing candidate.
Yep.
Consistently has been. And so we will not be surprised with a couple of things that you're going to say. We'll be consistent with that initiative. But for me, on this election cycle, we're going to put people on the spot. How?
Right. Break
it down for us. Where's the money going to come from? Specific. And then we want to hear it from you, not your proxies.
Or your aides.
Yeah. So that we understand that it's not a document that's been typed and given to you, that you understand that. So if one, you can put up whatever you want to put up now. I put my rider. I'm sure our colleague that is offline, virtual, also has his own intro.
All right, yeah. Chika, thank you for that. Ayobami, please, your take on what you've heard from Chika, and I guess what your thoughts on that breaking up of the government monopolies that the candidate Atiku of the PDP is planning.
I'm a human resources professional, and we make things happen by policies and rules. This first slide you showed doesn't cost money. The law to make it happen is already in place. So when my colleague in the studio says, where is the money coming from? Actually, the law, the framework, the institutions are already in place. It's just for government to take a decision. We are privatizing ABC road. We saw what happened in the last couple of years where this current government decided, for example, that they were going to privatize roads. And we saw companies like MTN coming up to say they're going to take a road. This is a company in telecoms coming up to say they want to manage a road. So it's not everything that costs money. And that's one of the things, that's one of the mindsets and human resource professional has. Many things that happen by policy, which is sometimes at no cost. Don't also forget that as far back as during the time of General Babangida, we had laws of privatization. Not only do we have laws, we also have good examples of privatization that has worked. So when somebody says, I'm going to break monopoly in all infrastructure, in the last couple of years, we have seen the President Babangida government breaking monopoly of infrastructure on federal roads. Some certain roads were just given out recently. If you actually think again about it, the Sukuk fund to fund road development is actually a way of allowing the private sector to come in. So when we say, where is money going to come from? Actually, when you allow the private sector to come into infrastructure, you reduce government exposure to infrastructure spending. So money is going to come from there. We have seen stories. Rotos, you know this. Companies like National Oil that became Okomu, we made money from the sale. Sorry, National Oil that became Tono. We made money from the sale of Okomu Oil. We made money from the sale of Presco. So we have a story of some success in terms of government leaving some business. And it's actually both a way for government, one, because there are two things the analysts in the House has mentioned. Will it bring money? Yes, the sale will bring money. That's sure. I mean, you're selling an asset. Now, you may tell me the money is not enough or it's not fair, but that's a totally different story. But it's going to bring money. Now, will it also reduce costs? Yes, it's going to reduce costs because when you, for example, decide to privatize NEPA or decide to do something about NEPA, the people you paid off, of course, that process was not well managed. But the question is that it can reduce your cost on the long run, even though it may increase your cost on the short run. So I see it as what this first one you showed us is just a question of a decision and some policy statements. It's practically at no cost to us, but we potentially reduce our cost over the long run and increase some income, give us some income in the short run. And this is about government allowing the private sector to go into infrastructure. We've done it for telecoms, it's worked. I'm sure everybody in that studio uses a private, not NITEL. We've done a lot of investment in the last 2 years. 23 private universities were approved in Nigeria. It's taking the burden of government and giving access to Nigeria. So this is one simple thing that anybody should be able to do, and it's not going to spend money. In fact, on day one, you can sign this into law and agree on what you want to privatize and allow private sector, and that changes the story altogether.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Let me make a comment on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always private sector driven.
Of course.
And I align with this comment. Now, like somebody asked me some time ago, say, who's private sector really? And because as you mentioned some successes, also the burial ground is littered with the death of a lot of other ones. You know, you look at the steel mills, they are all moribund. You look at the paper mills, they are all moribund. Incidentally, the vice president superintended the last massive privatization program in the country, which happened during the regime of General Olusegun Obasanjo when he was vice president. Now, so the issue for us, therefore, is in getting these private sector initiatives into giving them things to manage and stuff like that, we need to learn the lessons from these failures that we've had over the last privatization cycle, because most of them have not been a success. The jury is still out there for the discourse. You know what the issues are.
Liquidity issues.
Yeah, talk about so in general, what we have found out is that the so-called private sector have been people, some of them didn't have the funding base that would require private sector to have. Some of them didn't have the competencies required to manage these assets. So we need to be a little more thorough, in screening whoever is this so-called private sector that we're going to channel these assets to. That's the point I'm making. And because we're not, even the concession, we have things to do here the other day in one program when we raise issues on the ports and the other assets of the government that have not been, concessioned. And so that's the issue. So this is what the economy requires. The government doesn't need to hold so much. But I keep telling you in this program that what we don't lack in this country is planning. There's nothing really new in this manifesto. All of them are out there. But the issue has always been what?
Execution.
Execution.
Yeah.
Execution. Transparent execution that has the interest of the nation, as the front runner. And that has been the major issue. We can go to the next one.
Thank you, Chika. All right, Ivan, let me come to you now. Let's put up the second point here from the Atiku Abubakar plans, where he talks about the market, allowing the market greater leverage in determining prices. Ivan, can you talk about the, and Chika, I'll come to you as well. Ivan, can you talk about the ramifications of this for FX, electricity prices, fuel, and so on? What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, this is interesting because you have a federal, I'm trying to remember the name, the organization led by Barrister Tunde Ilukera, that has started to go into price
Competition Commission, yes.
Yes, that is already getting involved with pricing on luxury goods like the price of DSTV and things like that. I think what he's saying here is that, hey, we allow the market to leverage to determine the prices. That's where is the market. The market should determine the price. Now, it's understandable, and that's why he also mentioned that government will intervene where necessary. Of course, if it is a basic good, if you see collusion, if you see some elements of monopolies or oligopolist tendencies, then government should intervene, but not when somebody is using government time and resources to be arguing with DSTV over the price of DSTV. I think for me, that is a little bit of government overreach in the sense that you're doing things that and I think that is the point he's trying to make. Government should not be because the moment you get to price regulation, and I can give examples. During the time of General Mawa as governor of Lagos State, he introduced a rent control edit. We know the impact of the rent control edit. Minister Fashola has also come to say that he wants people to be paying rent only 1 year in advance in Lagos. We know it doesn't work. So I think the idea is, if Yoruba people say that there's a Yoruba proverb that if you give somebody a goat, you leave the rope to the person. The goat and the rope should go with the person. You can't say I've given this service to the private sector and you now still regulate prices, particularly for products, for elites, for products of less than $1 million Nigeria, for products that you have substitute. If somebody says the price of DSTV is too high, he can go elsewhere. And maybe, I think that's just the point being said there, which is also something I feel every candidate should be able to promote, because at the end of the day, that's what we should do. Just to say this in connection with the last thing I said, and because they are related to this private sector thing, Mr. Mbono in the studio, you having this conversation on Rise TV is an evidence of the value of the private sector. Because when I was young, you will not be here. You will be on NTA. And they will have censored what you will say. I grew up in Ibadan. There was NTV Ibadan. And that was the only TV station in the whole current Oyo and Ogun State. But today we are in an Arise TV, which is evidence that the private sector can make things happen. Nobody should determine the price of your advert. And I think it's you guys that should actually promote things like this, because you are the evidence that private sector is working. Today, when Nigeria wants to hear the news, they go to Arise, they go to private TV stations, they don't go to government stations, which is evidence that the private sector has worked. Some will fail, some won't fail. It's the reality of life. They're going to play a football match. Liverpool lost a couple of days back. Or will they not play the next match? The question is that there is nothing you do in this world that there's no risk of failure. But not acting is a problem. And I think that's the problem we have had in the last 8 years. There's been a lot of resistance and hesitation. ASU has been on strike for how many months now? There's been a lot of hesitation to take decision. If you take the decision, if it doesn't work, you review it. But not deciding or not taking steps, it is a dangerous part. And I feel that's one of the things we must put for every candidate. Take the steps. If there are risks, if there are prizes, if there are challenges, deal with it and move on. But don't just hesitate and don't do anything. President Biden showed us what is possible. He was sworn in. By the next couple of hours, he was signing executive orders. You remember how many he signed on day one? That's what we need. We need government to work and work fast.
Chika, I want to come back to you. But on your points on the successes and failures of privatization, I wanted to just touch on that point again.
I said that we need to learn from the failures in that privatization process, even as we celebrate the successes. And of course, those that succeeded even far above the expectation. Look at Transcorp Hotel. Look at Element Petrochemical. They are there. I was telling somebody that day when I said you will not recognize that this place was a government hotel before. And even Element some of us have had dealings with them. You wouldn't even know that it's a government enterprise before. And so when we get it right that way, we celebrate it. But the issue is that there are some failures that we need to learn why they failed, even as we proceed on this journey of moving items, assets into the private sector hands.
Fantastic. Also, I think Benway Cement sold to
Benway Cement also.
Unipetrol.
Unipetrol that
is now
Andwa also.
Fantastic.
Was also a success.
Great stuff. All right. Next up, let's take a look at this. I think there's also an infrastructure as well from the Atiku plan. Let's take a look at this next slide, where he says we will empower the private sector to participate further in developments to propel economic and social development. Ayobami, is this ease of doing business? Is that what he's talking about here? How do you interpret this?
Well, it could be interpreted in many ways. I mean, because this is about empowerment. So when you talk about empowerment, you have various modes. Again, this is another thing. And let me say this, and not necessarily to endorse a candidate or what, that everything you have shown today are things that will cost Nigeria no money to implement. We already have the laws to guide it. We already have the policies. It's just a decision of government to make it happen. So empowerment could include something as basic as ease of doing business, which this government have started with that committee that set up, and make them more effective. One of the challenges of that committee is the fact that it's a federal government-led initiative. The biggest drag on business in Nigeria are the state governments. And let's talk about it in real terms. So what has made, and I think that's what any new government can take advantage of, is the PEBEC that was set up was federal government led. Of course, there are governments and the governors and the governing council, but the effect had been little. So they can change it and say, okay, we're going to make this PEBEC, or the ease of doing business stuff, to be more driven by the state. That is a way to facilitate the private sector. Provision of education and information is also a way for you to facilitate the contribution of the private sector. I mean, making information available to the private sector to know what are the opportunities when there are things to be bidded for, people knowing where they can go and get the bidding done. That's another way to facilitate. Providing support. So you have like a National Directorate of Employment, for example. I mean, you can change that. You have, for example, government policies like the ICRC, the Infrastructure Regulatory Commission. You have training institutions like our universities, for example, that you can start to provide support for, give them mandate to start to train private sector guys to come to do what the public sector was doing before. So this is another low cost idea that you just need to just take a decision and mandate the government, already existing government agencies, to do what they have to do. One thing that may surprise you, and Rotus, you know this because you know some of the things I do outside of here, is that, for example, NAFDAC, why does it take months to register a drug in Nigeria or a food substance? Part of what you need to do is just give NAFDAC a mandate. That's why you have executive orders, and tell them any product that comes to NAFDAC within 48 hours, A must happen, B must happen. Go to the Nigerian Port Authority. That one is another kettle of fish. Just give them executive order. And when Vice President Oshibajo was acting president, he gave some orders that we saw changes at the airport. And it was just if you remember, it was just an executive order he gave to airports and to port. And we saw the impact in that short time. So again, another low-cost solution that can make a lot of difference and not going to cost money for us to do. It's just for us to decide and for government to enforce that decision.
All right, thank you for that. Chika, do you want to respond, or do you want to go to the next action item? Let's go to the next action item. Chika, I'll get you your points on this. I think this is on infrastructure again. Let's look at the next point on Atiku Abubakar's agenda. Okay, Chika, please. Establish an infrastructure development unit in the presidency with a coordinated function and specific mandates for working with MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies to fast track. Chika, you've talked about Infracore already. Is this extra? Is this too much? What do you make of this?
Again, when you pull items into the presidency, I always have a problem.
Yes.
Because it's like you're giving the pilot a lot to do. And a lot of times when there are other crises, you may not be able to manage them. I think putting this under the president for him is to signify the importance of it,
right,
and to ensure that things are done, speedily. I have a feeling that these things can be, again, Infracore is private sector led.
Yes.
So, as my colleague has said a few minutes ago, if we are moving to private sector-led initiatives, moving the infrastructure mandate again to presidency becomes an issue. The issue is to provide an enabling environment that will enable people like the Infracore and other private sector individuals to be able to invest in infrastructure. And I keep saying that there's nothing really new in any of these.
Right.
What we have lacked in our country is diligent implementation. I can go through. I was in a session somewhere the other day, and I had to do a lot of research backwards in Nigerian economic plans. And when people came up with what they call new idea, I'll pull up the 1975 or 1978 development plans, and I'll show them this has been there all this while. What we have lacked in this country is a conscientious implementation of plans. I guess maybe that's why the Atiku campaign has decided that they want to put this under the presidency to enable them to be a coordinating function to work with the MDEs and make sure that no conflicts in execution of the initiatives.
Thank you, Chika. Only got 2 minutes to go. And again, reminder to our viewers, when the APC and other parties release their candidates, make known their candidates, we will do the same thing. 2 minutes to go. Very quickly, refineries. Let's quickly take a look at this next point here. If you can just, in about 30 to 45 seconds, I just want to get your thoughts on this next point on the Atiku agenda, where he says that they will privatize all government-owned refineries. Quickly, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, this one is another thing. Don't forget, it was vice president to President Obasanjo when the Port Harcourt refineries was privatized and given to Alhaji Dangote's companies. And then late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua reversed that sale. So all they have just said is that we will continue from where we stopped, which is something that is, again, another low-cost opportunity. We have had, since the time late Yar'Adua reversed that sale, we have had billions of investments in the refineries. Today, they are not working. What is evident is that what Obasanjo did then, selling to selling to Dangote, and now Dangote has gone to start his own. What they did then is evidently what we should have continued. So what I can just say is that what we did that some people reversed and some people did not do anything about, we'll just go and do it. And another low cost, no costs opportunity for us to take the cost, because immediately you privatize refinery, you get two advantages. One, potentially you can get income from the sales, which you are not currently getting. Two, you reduce the cost of these employees you are currently saying. You know, when the NNPC released their audited report, the amount of personnel costs for refineries that are not producing anything. So you reduce that cost.
All right.
And potentially you start to get some products out too.
Great stuff. Chika, you get the last word. Only a minute to go. So, final word from you.
Refineries. Yeah, I mean, we know what this is already costing. We cannot touch the fuel subsidy, the NLC says, until refineries work. I guess with the private sector coming into the refinery, we hope that everything works. Just like we said some minutes ago that the Eleme Petrochemical has worked, the refinery should hopefully work when it's in private sector hands.
Fantastic stuff. Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu, Abayomi Fayemi, human resources professional and entrepreneur. Thank you both for joining us to talk about the Atiku agenda. We look forward to the other candidates and delving into their agendas as well.